good. Wonderful. Okay.
Or I think they posted
We've
on
been
their
trying to
Facebook.
do Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. It's a little different because we're taping today. We're doing a live feed in order to enable more parents to receive the information. But I really appreciate you taking the time, you being here, and for us to be able to just have a little chat about the fact that you will survive. Now, believe me, I'm here as living proof of that. One of the things that we're going to be talking about is how to make those connections. You know, when you're trying to raise healthy children, boy, of course this isn't going to work. There we go. There are three really important things that go into how do you survive these years. You know, when the child's born, you really hope that they would come with a manual. Wouldn't that be great if they just came with a manual and this is how you do it? But that's not what happens. Before I continue, because I don't know if it's on the next slide or not, I'm Denise Cipolla. I'm the coordinator for counseling and guidance here in CISD. And as we talk today, I may begin to disclose some personal things and stories of my children. They are 32 and 34 now. I also have grandkids who are 4 and 7. I thought my son was effortless and that just everything went along, you know, he was the perfect child. Now as he's an adult, he's beginning to share things with me that I realize, oh my goodness, I just didn't know, but we survived it. My daughter was our trial and our tribulation. We went through a lot. I went from, at age 15, hearing her behind her closed door say, "Momzilla has done it now," to being best friends today. We survived some really hard times. And she's given me permission to share those things if they come up because she's an educator now. She's a teacher in Aldine and works with junior high. And says if we can, our stories can prevent anyone from going through the same trials. She wants that to be a learning opportunity to help others. Same thing with my son. Our roughest times with him happened in adulthood just a few years ago. And he now does testimonies with his wife about what they went through and again trying to help others. So I guess I share all of that so that you realize there's no magic to it. I've been a counselor for 34 years. You know, it happens, different things happen to all of us, and the only way we survive it is working together. And one way you do that as a parent is build a strong foundation with your child. I think that's how we overcame everything that we did. Bottom line, my kids knew that no matter how hard they pushed me away, I wasn't going anywhere. And that's something that it's hard. They push, and that's natural during these teenage years for them to want to push away because they're testing those boundaries, trying to figure out, this is what you've taught them they are going to be. This is what they're discovering or who they are. And somewhere between those two is who they'll really become. Before we continue, I wanted to kind of get an idea of what age group your children are. So anybody have those kindergarten to 8th grade group? Anybody have? Yes? Okay. And then everybody else is high school? Oh boy, bless your heart. Bless your heart.
Really going through it right now.
Yes, yes. Because not only do you have those normal things, it is a different world. And we've got very young parents listening today and here with us. And the changes just from when you were growing up to what your children are experiencing now, and certainly dramatic changes from when I was growing up and even when I was raising my kiddos. So what are those important things? I call it the 3 C's. You have to connect, you have to communicate, and then coordinate. Know that you have resources here at the school through the counselors and administrators and teachers who really do care. You're in Conroe by no mistake, and I want you to know that your child's not just one of the masses and a number. We truly care individually about our kids. If you're not feeling that, then reach out to your counselor. Let's make that a personal relationship because that is what's very important to us. We don't want anybody slipping through the cracks. And so for you as a parent, teaching your child to communicate, to become a self-advocate. If we do our job right as a parent, they graduate and they leave home. If we don't, then they live with us forever. And so you don't want to see that happen. Now they may bounce back. That's much more of our world today is they may have to come home and get some more matches to go set that world on fire. And that's okay because that also is our job as a parent. But beginning to have your child advocate for themselves, not fighting all their battles for them. And so they're giving them a voice so that when they become independent, when they graduate, when they go off post-secondary to college or wherever they're headed, they have a voice. That things don't happen to them. It happens because they're part of the orchestra of where they're headed. That's really an important thing. That takes practice, and it takes a habit, a building of a habit to be able to accomplish those things, to make decisions, to set things into motion. Also to learn from mistakes. We can't protect our children from everything because then they don't develop those strategies and those coping skills to take a failure and to turn it into a fuel for future success. Think back to when your children were learning to walk. Did they just get up and take off? No, they fell a lot, and they crawled, and they may have held onto the table and circled the table for a long time before they let go. And so it's those same practice skills as what we're trying to teach our teens today, all children today, is to develop those skills of resiliency, of being independent, and of making choices and decisions. So teach your child as being capable. Empower them to make decisions. Now that doesn't mean they make all their decisions and they just do whatever they want. But it starts as simple as, do you want to wear this or this? And that can continue well into junior high. No, that is not acceptable. That's not the way we're going to have you dressed. You can wear this or you can wear this. That's also responsible use of technology. That's obeying curfews or not. That could be grade expectations in your home. And we'll come back to some of that in a little bit. But if we do everything for our children, they never develop those skills of being resourceful and competent. I want you to think back to something that you had to work really hard at that you accomplished. Can you think of something that really took a lot of effort and that feeling when you accomplished it? If we do absolutely everything for our children, they never develop that feeling of accomplishment because it was your accomplishment as the parent. They never get to feel that as something that they did. Big argument in our household. I was going to be super mom. I was going to work full time and do everything for my children. And my husband felt like I was just their maid. And so he said, no. I mean, at a very young age, he said, the kids can have chores. No, I'm going to do everything for them. He said, no, the kids can have chores. And he thought that, loading the dishwasher was something that they should be able to accomplish. Well, for me, that wasn't really a good thing because they didn't maximize the space. They didn't rinse it off properly, number one. So a bunch of junk got in there, and then they just stuck it in there, and I felt like it was wasting electricity and blah, blah, blah. But I said, okay, we'll let them do it. And then once they left, I went in and fixed it and put it in the way it needed to be. But anyway, we all do those sorts of things. But, sometimes you have to work long and hard to figure out how to have your child accept those responsibilities. And I'm talking children of all ages. What responsibilities they have is based on their age, of course. As simple as getting themselves up for school. Now, does that mean you just let them sleep in if they don't get up? No, you're still coming back a little while after the alarm to make sure they've gotten out of bed, right? So, and then teaching resiliency in times of distress and crisis. If you're able to develop these strategies in the small things, when something big comes about later, they know how to employ those skills. They know how to, if nothing more than reach out to you or to another trusted adult in the family or in the household or in their world where they can get some assistance. So let's visit, we're going to kind of go through quickly, wrong direction. We're going to go through quickly the younger years, though I know some of you have some there, but think about what life was like when you were in 4th grade. And we already talked about this a little bit, but how has it differed now for your child in those elementary, grades or up through that age 12? It's changed. It's changed a lot. But think about, where did you go to school? And who were your best friends, or did you have one? You may not have had close friends in elementary school, and your child may not have really close friends. Where did you live? Who was who was your favorite teacher? Who was someone that meant something important to you? For me, It was actually my 4th grade teacher and my 6th grade teacher is the reason I became an educator. Those were times in my life where I felt very alone, and I didn't like my mom very much, and because she was very rigid and very strict and wouldn't let me do things I wanted to do. And so my teachers at that time were the ones who helped me grow up and realize that it was hopeful that something would be better. So now think about your child and what type of things that they're battling, that the types of things they're going through. When you're looking at developmental goals up to age 12, this is to develop competence, to also develop a capacity to learn new things, and to begin to be able to be creative. That's one thing they're telling us, is a lot of students today have no creativity because they're overscheduled and everything's just fed to them. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, we would lay in the grass and we'd look up at the sky and we'd imagine the different types of animals that were in the clouds. You know, if we were bored, we found things to do. We, you know, drew and we created and we made messes. And now a lot of the times kids are in very scheduled activities that don't allow for that creativity. Now, some of those scheduled activities are also creative. They may take dance, they may have music lessons, they may be involved in athletics, which I think still has a creative, you know, aspect to it as well. But learning self-care skills, learning how to care for themselves, and that includes keeping a schedule, developing those habits of being organized, of getting up to an alarm, as I mentioned, of dressing, of bathing, right? All of those types of things. They develop a conscience. One of the things we're seeing as counselors across the district, across the nation, is technology has disconnected everyone. Adults responsible for that as well. And in that, you know how maybe when you used to play with your friends, you get mad at each other, you pick up your toys and you ran home, right? And later, you'd talk about whatever went wrong and you'd work through who got mad and why they got mad. A lot of our kids today don't have those one-on-one interactions, so they may be an adult or definitely a teen before they know how to handle that kind of discord in a relationship. That's an awful lot to expect them to just know how to do. It has to be practiced. So this is that next part. They learn to cooperate. They learn to be part of play fairly, to follow social rules. And so without those opportunities to be social and interactive, if it's all just through social media, may never meet a friend face to face, then they're missing those opportunities. And then we already talked about, you develop a high self-esteem through work, through accomplishment. And so we don't want to take that away from them. I really, I love this when it just talks about smart home, technology is here. I don't need light bulbs I can control with my phone. I need children I can control with my phone. I used to laugh about the fact, again, my daughter's 32 and was rarely where she said she was going in high school. So I'd follow her and I'd try and figure out where she was. And I thought, oh, I wish I could put a GPS device on her so I really knew where she went. And now you can do that. You can do that with the phone. So, you know, it's changing and it's not going to go away. So you might as well make technology your friend. So normal difficult behavior. This is really, I'm talking about that through age 12, but I bet you'll see it kind of goes into that high school too, particularly if you're noticing that maybe your child hasn't developed these skills at a younger age. They're still going to be developing these skills as they're growing up. So testing the limits, that's normal. I want you to know that. Short attention span, that too is normal. That may or may not get better. I don't know about you, but we still have some challenges with that, with my adult children and my husband. So not getting along with their siblings or their peers, that is normal. That's learning how to cooperate and learning how to you know, to reach a consensus sometimes, right? Worries about not being accepted for who they are, that also is normal. Curiosity about body parts, right? That whole male, female, whatever, who am I, what am I? All of that's absolutely normal. And then not taking responsibility for their own behavior. That too is actually normal. Someone else's fault. The reason you want to battle this is you don't want to create a situation where your child is a victim. That victim mentality can last far too long. And so if we don't learn to take responsibility for our own actions, if it's always someone else's fault, you're just giving up your power to be who you really are, right? But that is normal. Here's where you're talking about more serious issues, and that would be an unusual amount of anxiety or fear or stress or anger or pain. And I know you're saying, well, what's an unusual amount? I can't tell you that because your child is your child. Your family situation is just that. But if it's daily and excessive, if it's extreme, if it's something that's causing complete upheaval within the family, that would be an unusual amount. Not talking about little fit, better in 15 minutes, better in 30 minutes. We're talking about just constant upheaval. Excessive aggressiveness, that is also a more serious issue. Talk about harming or hurting themselves or others. There's a 200% increase in the suicide rate in kids grades ages 10 to 14. 200%. The depression, age of depression in 2010 was the most serious depression and age of serious depression was 26. It's now 14 and a half. And so that's when you're talking about, and those stats change so quickly. You know, when you're talking about the types of things that our kids are facing and whether or not they're able to know that there's hope, that it will get better. And that's where we can help. And that's why if you're aware of what your child's thinking and what they're going through, and you have a safe environment where they can come to you with their problems, then we can help with those resources and help them survive, right? Survive that. If we can just grow up enough to develop the maturity that we know that it will get better. As dismal as it seems at the time. If they're harming themselves or pets, that's a more serious issue if you're seeing that. You know, so looking at this age particularly is when we see a rise in self-harm, the non-suicidal self-injury or cutting. And so looking, it was a babysitter for my family who my daughter was about 11, I guess, when she started cutting, and I'm a counselor. I had no idea. But it's back when they wore lots of those rubber bracelets, and a babysitter happened to say, Miss Denise, did you see her arms? It's like, well, yeah, I see her arms all the time. No, did you see? And I had no idea. So it takes all of us, right? It takes all of us. We can be very, very involved with our children and still miss some cues. You know, another thing with my daughter is she's an artist. So she would leave drawings places. She says it was subconscious, but when I would find them, I would know what was going on with her. And there was a time there where I kept all of that because I thought we would lose her. I didn't think she'd grow up, and I needed to have that to make sense out of what she went through in those really miserable, dark years. So another more serious issue is school phobia or school refusal. It's, we see more of a rise for that true phobia in high school, being afraid to get in, and we work out a plan with getting them into school every day if that's going on. At these younger years, at under 12 years, that's usually because they're afraid something's going to happen to you while they're gone. So they don't want to leave home when they're little because they don't want anything to happen to you while they're away. And so we also work with the counselors and administrators or work with our little ones about checking in, doing phone calls home maybe every 3 hours or every so often just to make sure mom's okay, mom or dad's okay. So we have ways to help support with that. Frequent or extended excessive emotional reactions. Again, what's excessive? I don't know. It's up to your family. I have a very dramatic child. Don't know where she might get that. But I have a very dramatic child, and so for us, we probably missed some of that because everything was always a big deal for a while. Particularly if you've got those junior high age girls, you got a very dramatic child right now too, don't you? So that's where that connection and being able to listen. And when I say that, and it's somewhere coming up, active listening. How often do we listen, but we're just waiting for a pause in our child's comments so we can insert what we're wanting to say? Active listening is listening to really hear what they're saying, because if you really hear what they're saying, it may change what your response is going to be. And so that's probably one of the biggest keys, and to try not to gasp when they say something that you're just astonished at, because you don't want them to feel judgment over it. You want them to continue to talk to you and to reach out to you. So we have to kind of sometimes be, you know, the best actress of saying, okay, yeah, and then later fall apart and say, oh my gosh, I can't believe they told me that, you know. My husband's still astonished at what the kids will share with me. And you know, once they're adults, there's just stuff you don't need to know, but it's good to have that relationship. So, excessive or exaggerated focus on video games. That at any age is an issue. That's a rising issue for us as counselors. It is creating it's a rising issue for industry. They're talking about people who are losing their jobs because they can't be off either their social media or their gaming while they're at work. So it is something that we even have people within the area who can assist if your young teen or teen has addiction issues already with technology. We do have, next week, we have a really important meeting at Grand Oaks High School. It's next Thursday night at 6:30, and it's technology addiction on the brain, teenage brain. And it shows that comparison of how technology and addiction to drugs or alcohol can be charted with the same type of addictive natures. And the doctor who's going to be presenting that information gives some great advice on how to address that. So what do you do? If you've noticed these more serious issues, what do you do as a parent? Well, avoid overscheduling. And we've talked about that a little bit. The kids feel like they're pressured to be professional at a very, very young age. Some of that is this age of entitlement, the trophy generation. You know, everybody gets a trophy. You participate, you get a trophy. But the problem with not earning that trophy is you haven't developed the resiliency of what to do, continue to get better. When I was growing up, I did a lot of beauty pageants. There were a lot of didn't win. One win, but a lot of didn't win. But I developed, I was also a professional model, and I didn't get chosen for a lot of jobs. And that develops a resiliency, right? So the same thing, when your kiddo doesn't get chosen for that team or that scholarship or whatever, how do we help them reframe that disappointment to do better next time? It's not the end of the world. Watch out for perfectionism. That's a hard one, because oftentimes perfectionism is inherited. So we may be subconsciously encouraging those traits in our kiddos. Our active listening, we just talked about, that undivided attention. Find a time, find something that you and your child like to do together. For me, when my son was in junior high, I walked every day after school, and so he walked with me most days. Some days we talked. Some days we talked a lot. Some days we walked in silence, and that was okay, but it was that avenue that was always there. It doesn't have to be daily. My daughter really loved Starbucks when she was, you know, in high school. Even though we were going through really bad times, that was our time away. A couple days a week, we take an hour or so away and we go have a coffee, and she'd talk about stuff or not, or we just watch people. But having those avenues, and I don't know about you, but have you ever been zinged at bedtime? I saw a nod. So that's when you might find, even as your kids get older, your bedtime ritual has to get earlier and earlier, because even as teens, I still would go in when my son was a senior and kiss him on the forehead and kiss him goodnight. And I can't tell you how many times, even as a junior and senior, that little time turned into a 30-minute, oh mom, guess what happened today? And here it came. So if you have more than one child, being able to have enough time for each of them and it doesn't have to be daily. I know what your schedule's like. I know it's crazy to carve in even a family dinner, but a couple of times a week where you can have undivided time if you have multiple children, or just create an opportunity for your child to be able to share what's going on in their world. That way, if they're coming to you when nothing's wrong, they'll come to you when something is wrong. You know, if you're completely unapproachable, I guess if nothing else, and again, it'll be here somewhere, but who is your child's trusted adult? Because there are times in our kids' lives when they don't want to disappoint us. And so they may not tell us because they don't want us to be disappointed. But who is a trusted adult for you and for your child that they would go to in the event something's wrong? My sister lives 1,600 miles away, but Aunt Lisa was the trusted adult. And I had a pact with her. If the kids ever call you, and this continued through college and probably today, if the kids ever call you and there's something wrong that they need help with, and it can be fixed, if it's not life-threatening and continuing, I don't need to know about it. If they come to you, you can handle it. And I told them the same thing. You can go to Aunt Lisa, and I'm not going to ask. I've never asked. I'm fairly certain, as close as she is with my daughter, they've had those moments. I'm sure she probably had to help her a time or two in college. But who is that trusted adult for you? Is there someone for you and your child that they know they can go to talk about or to call in the event of a real crisis that you guys are good with? And then help your child find a passion. Share that adventure. Share some fun with your kid. We're so busy being parents that we forget just to live and enjoy life together and to take advantage of those moments together. It wasn't so long ago, it was last year, and my grandchildren and I, it was raining, and so we went out and we were playing in the puddles. Man, we were stomping, and we were all really sopping wet, and it was so much fun, and we were having a great time. And we were going back, and my son met us on the back porch with a bunch of beach towels, and he goes, "Who are you?" And I said, "What? Mom, look at the kids, look at yourself, what?" And he became very judgmental, and I said, "I've always liked to play in the rain." He said, "Since when?" And it dawned on me, in his 33 years with me, he had never seen me play in the rain. How sad, because I've always loved to play in the rain. As a kid, I was in the rain all the time. And for whatever reason, your life gets busy, and you're busy parenting, and you forget to share some of that fun with your kid. And so that's really kind of an important part. I know you love your children. That's why you're tuned in today. That's why you're here today. You love your child. But does your child know what you like about them? Because that's pretty big. You know, there are a lot of things about my daughter that was not the way I wanted us to grow up together. I would have much rather read a book to be able to help you with parenting advice, but God decided that I had to go through it with my child. And I think just for them to know that you accept them for who they are and that what you like about them. Both of my kids are really good human beings. I mean, they've got lots of great attributes now that we've survived it all. But think about your child and what do you really like about them, and do they know it? You know, in that process, you have to discover what's your love language with your child. I have no personal boundaries. I hug, I've got no problem with that. I love that. You may. My sister is one of those who hugs like this. I know she loves me. I know that that's all she can do. That's a hug. And that may be you. Maybe you didn't come from a family who did lots of hugs and say I love yous and all of that. But what is that connection and that love language with your child? For my daughter and my husband, it's old rock music. To this day, they'll sit and just listen to old rock and talk about that, and that's when I know they're bonding the closest. It may be that you journal with your child. It may be that you just can't talk to them when you're mad or they're mad, but you write them a note. Whatever that is, that they know that you accept them and what you like about them and that you appreciate who they are. Because all they're looking for, you know, if you think back, I don't know if you've heard this research, but they say that soldiers in war will keep a loved one's picture in their helmet. And that by doing that, that gives them the courage to face every day and to survive battle. Our greatest need as a person is belonging. And that's what we're seeing, that lack of connection is where we're seeing the rise in depression and anxiety and stress in our students, is because they're missing that connection. I am not pointing any fingers at parenting or you as parents or anything. It's the nature of the world we're in right now that disconnects everyone. And we just have to work that much harder to stay connected, because that belonging is what really makes it happen. We've got kiddos who are failing miserably in one class, but a completely different child in another teacher's class. And you go, what's the deal? Your brains didn't disappear between first and fourth. No, but that teacher likes me. And so I'm producing for that teacher because I know they care. Right? So those same types of things that we can try. Here you are, most of you are in that age is 13 to 18. Ugh. All right, so think about yourself at that age. It was a miserable age for me, which is truly why I became a counselor. I hated high school. Kind of was on the outside. I was a theater freak. I was one of those that didn't fit in with everybody else. Sorry, theater people, but you know, we are a little different sometimes. Right? And it wasn't the thing to do. Athletics was the thing to do in my high school. Oh no, not my thing, right? So if your child hasn't found that niche, how do you help them find the niche so that they develop that self-worth, right? So what is normal? Difficult behavior for a teenager. Boy, this is a hard one, right? There's that lack of manual again, but moodiness is normal. Please know that. All the hormones, that's what creates the moodiness, right? And don't think that your boys won't have the same type of moodiness that your girls do. Mothers of sons, yes, I'm seeing the nods. Absolutely. Same types of moods. You know, for my son, he grew about 5 inches over summer between 8th and 9th grade. He's 6'4" now, so he continued to grow. But that, just the nature of that physical growing was very taxing on him, physically and emotionally. That was a lot. And so think about the growth spurts, think about the hormone imbalance, think about not knowing who they are, where they want to be, what they want to do, and then just that fear of growing up. Boy, that's a lot, right? Peer conflict is also normal, difficult behavior in high school. Less attention toward you as the parent. That's normal. Don't get your feelings hurt. Don't think it's just you. That is normal. They don't want you with them all the time. They don't want you kissing them around their friends. They don't want you, loving on them. And that's okay. They're trying to practice to be independent. They have to begin to pull away to test those wings. And we want to be there to keep boosting them out of the nest, right? And I know those are analogies that sound silly, but think about it. Why would you leave home if it's a warm, fuzzy, safe place to be? So they have to make it kind of miserable. You'll see this happen the senior year. Life has to be kind of miserable so you can have the courage to leave home. You might find that during the senior year, maybe even junior year, you have kind of a business time with your child. We had to do that. My son Joseph stopped coming home his senior year. He was in band and choir, so he was always gone anyhow, but he really stopped coming home. And at one point, I said, Joe, you have got to be home. We've got to do this, this, this. And he goes, Mom, that's just it. All you're doing is reminding me that I'm about to leave home and I'm graduating, I'm going off to college, and I don't want to go anywhere, so I don't want to hear it. I thought, oh, wow. But he was right. I was constantly badgering him about leaving. And so he had to insulate himself by not being around. So we came up with an agreement that for us it was Sunday afternoon from 2 to 4. That was business time. If it didn't have to be done before then because of a deadline, I had a list, he had a list. We did business then. And every other day of the week we could be a family and we could enjoy being together. I really, I recommend that you kind of think about that. Might that work for you? Because that prevents that harp. And the more you harp and the more you nag, the more they tune you out, and then everybody ends up getting mad and frustrated. So if you can push that off to, let's do business during whenever, it may have to be twice a week, it cycles, maybe nothing. Maybe you get to business time and there's nothing on anybody's agenda and you get to go do something fun together. Wouldn't that be nice, right? That's a nice reward for doing that. Also normal is self-involvement. Again, that's trying to figure out who they are, so that's normal. The fact that they tune you out, don't want to be around you, lock themselves in the room, and all they are is about themselves. Just be there when needed. Stress and worries about their relationships, that's very normal. Again, feeling that independence. And then rule and testing the limits. Counselors will tell you that every day when we talk to kids who've gotten in trouble or mad at their parents, all they're looking for is how far is too far. And that if you don't have rules and limits, somehow they do associate that to how much you care. So even though you might think by letting them do what they want and being less strict, you're befriending them, they have enough friends, they need parents, they see it as a lack of caring and a lack of love because you don't have any structure for them. You allow them. For my daughter, she said, everybody else turned against me, so I kept looking for what I would do where you and Dad would turn away to. And as an adult, she's thanked me for never turning away. Boy, she sure tested it. Right? So that is normal, to keep pushing, to say, okay, that's it. And for me, safety was non-negotiable. All right, we could talk about anything as long as it wasn't related to safety. But if it was a safety factor, going somewhere I thought was unsafe, being with people I thought was unsafe, that was a non-negotiable. No, that's not. My job as a parent is to keep you safe, and if I can't do that, we're going to find a way where I can keep you safe. Right? So at one point, we talked about sending our daughter off to a boarding type facility just to keep her safe. When we got to that point, she began to listen to her self-destructive behavior a little bit more when she saw how serious it was for us. Right? Struggle with a sense of identity, that's also very normal, trying to figure out who they are, remember? And then sexuality concerns, questioning, trying to figure all of that out, that is normal. And when you're seeing these things, if some of these are really difficult for you as a parent to deal with, remember that's where your counselors at school can help. And if you don't really want to connect with them, we can also provide you with outside resources if you feel like you need someone maybe who could work with you and your child on a weekly basis or something like that as well. Now this is where I know most of you are here. What are those more serious concerns? So for teenage years, the more serious concerns we see is if it's difficult for them to cope with day-to-day activities. 37 to 50% increase in teen depression. I bet it's even higher than when I created this last year. And so what you're seeing is if your kiddo just will not get up, isn't bathing, won't get out of bed, starts just staying on the couch all the time, you can't get them engaged in their life because you saw what the normal was. Normal was sense to fly, get out there, try new things, be with friends, figure out who I am. So if they're retreating and going into self, we've got to see what's going on with them. Somatic complaints such as stomach aches, headaches, ongoing things like that, that would be, first place is go to the family doctor. Make sure all that body chemistry that's changing so dramatically is, find out what's wrong. Or is there something wrong? Maybe nothing, but that's a good place to start. It might be as simple as some body chemistry stuff that's just arrived because of all that flux in growth and hormones. I found out, my son, again, grew very fast. If he stood up too fast, he'd pass out because the blood couldn't get there fast enough to motivate or to fuel the body to move. But it also came with a lot of headaches, and that was just sheer growth things. Well, sort of. He also said he feigned migraines whenever he didn't study for a test. So, they do stuff like that. Frequent display of temper. And there's a difference between getting mad over something and having a complete flash temper tantrum, breaking things, really physical temper, explosions. Suicidal or homicidal ideation. 1 in 5 children today has a mental health problem. 1 in 5. You think about that. when you've got your friends of your kids over, and I hope you're that place that everybody comes to hang out. And when when they're younger, always ask to drive. Be that parent that's driving. Have you noticed when you're driving the car and they're all behind you, they talk, they don't realize we're there. They think we're behind glass or something. But boy, do you hear a lot if you're that one driving, or if you're that house where they're hanging out. It helps to know who the friends are that your kiddos are hanging out with. You can control things in your own home, but your children still go other places and get exposed to things that maybe aren't part of your family value system. And so that's where having that connection is so important, so that when they get exposed to whatever somewhere else, they come home and say, hey, Mom, or hey, Dad, what, can you help me? You know, this is what I heard. And so having that open communication so they can figure it out and make it fit together is really important. Otherwise, their values are then formed by outside your family resources. And that can be kind of scary in today's world particularly. You know, when I was growing up, and I've said that so many times, but I just think about, if I wanted to go investigate something, I had to go to the library. I had to get in the card catalog and pick out a book, go find the book, and then I had to check it out with the librarian. So she knew exactly what I was looking into. Now kids, one click, boom. Look at what they're exposed to on their phone or through their electronic devices. So we can't prevent them from being exposed to it. We have to help them make sense of what they're exposed to. It's just really scary with the loss of innocence, and that's a whole nother presentation. But the loss of innocence and what they're able to just click, get now. We talked about, suicidal, homicidal ideation. Let's go back to that. If your child is really depressed and is talking about harming themselves, you may say, they just want attention. I know what's going on, they just want attention. Okay, then let's give them the attention. Never, ever, ever discount comments of self-harm or wanting to harm someone else. And if one of your children's friends, if you're their trusted adult, please reach out and let us help that family as well. It may just be attention getting, and that's fine. They just need the attention for whatever reason, and let's give them the attention. We don't want to lose any children. And so that's really important, not to discount it and to reach out and let us help you in those cases. Self-harm, cutting, burning, restricted breathing, all of those are some things that are more serious. If you know about those, let us help you. If they withdraw from their activities, and I'm not talking about a case of, I dropped track and I picked up choir. I spent more time in choir. That's substituting activities. That's normal. Trying to figure out what you want to do and what you're about, that's all normal. But when they drop everything, they're no longer involved in anything, that's a more serious concern. Significant changes in grades, attitudes, hygiene, functioning. If a teenager's not bathing, something's wrong, right? They're wanting to produce the very best as they're forming relationships and getting involved with others. And so if they've stopped bathing, there's some depression going on there. There's something wrong. So kind of, we will let you know if we're seeing it at school. We do that. The teachers are amazing at letting us know what they see. They know your child better sometimes because they spend more time with them. They sometimes know more of what's going on at this age than we do as a parent. And so if they see something happening, they're going to tell the school counselor, and we're able to follow up, and then we're going to involve you. So help us by, if you're seeing things at home that we can help with, let us know. And we can keep that confidential. We won't tell your kid you called if you're just wanting to check some things out. Just like we may not call you when your kid comes in, but we'll work for you to get together with things. We'll work toward making sure you're able to communicate if it's that type of issue. Of course, delinquency, that's a problem. Excessive fighting or aggression, sexual promiscuity, Drug and alcohol abuse, all of those are more serious. If you start seeing your kid using drugs and alcohol, talk to your school counselor. Let's get something to help them now before it becomes a more serious problem. Those are masks for what else is going on. So what can you do? Because we're running low on time. I always talk too much. But what can you do if you're seeing these more serious behaviors? Gain access by rebuilding our lost connections. So decrease those feelings of isolation, connect with your child, make sure they know you really do care, that whatever they may have gone wrong, it's okay. Together as a family, you can overcome it. It's never about fix my kid. Make sure your child knows it's family. Whatever you're going through happens to all of us, and we're there as a family to fix it. Even if your family is just you and your child, it's a family unit. And so we want to help with that. Increase non-judgmental or unconditional love and acceptance. Create that belonging. We talk about that. Your presence is vital. Your schedule may not allow you to be present all the time, every night. You can't have family dinners every night, but maybe twice a week you could. Or maybe the family dinner is pick something up and go to the park for half an hour, right? Who knows what that looks like for your family, but you can't always fix it, but you can be there. Once my daughter went to college, she would call me sometimes. She was at Texas State, and she'd say, "Mom, you can't fix this. I just want you to listen to me." Because I was always wanting to go in. We had been through such hard times in high school. I wanted to save her and make it better. And so sometimes we just have to bite our tongue and listen and let them vent. And then they're usually better. We're left with those feelings, but they're usually better within a few minutes sometimes. So careful you're not reacting based on your own past. You may want certain things for your children, but is it what they want? Who they are and what they're about is really important. That respect, that mutual respect with one another, right? I wanted a girly girl. I got what I got. She's not a girly girl. The first 3 years of her birthday cakes were Ninja Turtles, and my mom said, "Are we ever going to have a birthday cake without a sewer lid on it?" Even her first wedding cake, she's been divorced now and remarried, but her first wedding cake had Ninja Turtles on it because that's what she was about. My daughter's a barefooter. You think that's not embarrassing for me? She petitioned Walmart, and she has a letter in her purse that she can be barefoot in Walmart. Ew. But we had to make that agreement that when she's with me, I'm embarrassed by it, so she has to have shoes on. That's okay. She's 32. I'm not changing anything about her at this point, and I love her dearly, but that's okay too. Who is your child? Let them define themselves within limits, and then work out that relationship together. Learn a careful differentiation between encouraging and domineering. How do you encourage your child to be who they really are versus implant what you expect them to be? I couldn't make a petticoat-wearing, bow-wearing girl out of what I got. But I have an amazing human being as a daughter. And so that continues to develop. Know your child's dreams and desires and embrace their uniqueness. I really had to do that, and that's important for all of us. And isn't it what we want for ourselves as well? And so that mutual respect again there. And then align your goals with the goals of your child. Not you have to do this, but what do you want? Well, here's what I hoped. So somewhere between the two, maybe that's what we come up with what's able to be done. This just talks about coordinating, letting us know as a school what you're seeing. We'll let you know what we're seeing. Let's help these kiddos grow up. And you know what? By doing that and connecting maybe with someone else in your community, with friends, with resources, we can share the hope. I can share with you stories and tell you it will get better. If you can keep your child alive, they turn into really great human beings. And if something goes wrong, it's not the end of the world. It's embarrassing, but we've all been there. We've all walked it together. And you can share that hope together and the strength. This talks a little bit, we won't spend a lot of time because we are running out, but this talks about your own emotional health health and well-being. And so I do encourage you, if any of this has kind of sparked something for you, and if you realize, you know, maybe it's not my kid, maybe it's me, we can help with that too. We can help you find resources, because if you're focusing too much on your child, it may be something that you're needing. I'm a worrywart, and I get overly involved in my children's stuff. I know that. It really helped our relationship for me to work full-time, to get out of their business. Otherwise, I worried all the time. And I'm not saying go to work, don't go to work, or whatever, but just look at where your motivations are, and do you need support for your own mental health? If so, we can help you with that. So, how do we build resiliency in children and in our teens? By open communication, by unconditional love, having logical consequences for their actions and behaviors. We can't save them all the time. They need to learn how to endure what they've been exposed to, whatever went wrong, problem-solving skills and practice, encourage the independence, develop those coping skills, and I call it helping them know a self-worth and an okayness. Media has taught us either everything's really great or rock bottom low. As adults, we can look at it and realize there's a lot of just plain old days. And a plain old day is a really good day. If nothing happened either direction, you can breathe. So teaching our children that plain old days are great days, so that they're not in this society media view of what life is. So they realize that plain days are good days. We have control over that. We don't have control over the best. We don't have control over the worst. But we can affect that everyday stuff. This just again talks about a lot of the things we said, striving for balance, and this is the last of what we'll kind of talk about. Then I'll give you some resources and you can look at them later, and please feel free to reach out to me anytime, because I can help you fill in the gaps if some of this didn't make sense or frustrated you or whatever. But there's a stress curve, and so stress drives us to unhealthy and negative behaviors. The healthcare industry tells us that the majority of the billions of dollars that's spent on healthcare are due to heart ailments, stroke, and high blood pressure, things that are all physical conditions related to stress. So teaching mindfulness and the ability to know where resources are to live healthy, balanced lives is vital for us, not only now as children, for us as parents, and as we go into our elder years as well. So health and wellness, balanced nutrition, adequate sleep, big struggle for all of us. I don't know about you, but about day 3 of 6 hours of sleep a night, I am angry. I can't function. I'm an 8 or 9 hour a night girl. That's what I need to be really my full self. Kids need more sleep than they get, of all ages. If you saw that, you'd be stunned of how much sleep they need. We have to encourage them to do that. If you're allowing your child to have their technology in their bedroom, they are not sleeping. They are hooked into their technology. Do you have a parking spot for technology in the home that's not in their bedroom? We've got too many kids who wake up at 2 a.m. and get on social media and spend hours on it, and they may get 4 hours of sleep a night. I had a parent once say, but how are they going to wake up if I take their phone away? Walmart has alarm clocks. Go buy one, right? So that sounds, you know, you might say, oh, I can't take my kid's phone away. Do you pay for it? You pay for it. It's your phone. Phone is a privilege, not something that an entitlement, right? Same thing with a car. If your kid's not coming home for curfew, take the car keys away. Would you have to drive them? Yes, but you know where they are, and they can earn the keys back, right? Those are those logical consequences we were talking about. Striving for balance with social media. We already talked about that a little bit. So the last of our messages here, sorry Lydia, I'm going over. Children are being served with endless stimulation and technology babysitters. They get instant gratification. So teaching them to be able to know how to handle dull moments is a really important thing. right? Not entertaining them absolutely all the time. Let them become resourceful in how to entertain themselves. And then we will create and we will dream and we'll be more productive in the long run, right? So boundaries, making sure your child feels safe and cared for. Reduce those entitlements, emphasize responsibilities, have chores. My kids today tell me, Mom, why didn't you make us do any chores? Well, darn. I thought I was being super mom by doing everything for them, right? So information technology is not going away, so learn about it. Get involved, know what's out there. Ms. Joyner does an amazing thing on apps and what kids get into and what they hide things behind apps. And if you have not really become aware of what that vicious demon is that all of us rely on, find out about the technology your kids are using, know about the apps and the hidden apps, and know what's going on in your child's life. Design some family time that doesn't relate to that. You know, share meals, spend time together, and listen. And then know that you are not alone, that all of us are in this vicious, trying to get them to grow up together. So, an arrow can only be shot by pulling it backwards. When life is dragging you back with difficulties, it means it's going to launch you into something great. So just focus and keep aiming. Teaching our kids that 10 steps forward and 4 steps back is still 6 steps forward. Teaching them to keep trying. Nothing comes easy in life, and that they've got the support for someone, to help them as they're going through what they go through. The last here is, these are district resources for you. There's a couple of things on there I want to cite, which is this Race to Nowhere. It's a documentary available on Netflix. It's free. It talks about age of entitlement, the way high school kids feel today. It was in Northern California, kind of a area similar to the Woodlands, and kids talk very candidly in this documentary about what they feel, what it feels like getting ready to leave high school. It's very enlightening. Also, the Resilience Breakthrough, and that's something that all of the counselors here have done book studies on, and we have some really good techniques that we can help you. If you haven't are interested in learning about how to continue to develop that resilient child, I recommend it. It's easy reading. It's really insightful. Might even help you with your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend or whatever. So any relationship you have. The Conscious Parent, and then the Anxiety Survival Guide for Teens. CBT is a technique that counselors use that is amazing when you're talking about how to help someone who's experiencing anxiety of any age. And so we can help you if that's an issue for you too. The resources you see there, there's myself. There are a couple crisis specialists for the district. That's Janice Lovelace and Manuel Texador. And then we do have a mental health specialist. Her name is Kelly Locke. On our district guidance and counseling website, you will see parent information sessions listed. And if they're open, regardless of the zone they're in, they're going to be posted there, and you are welcome to attend any of them. The next one being next Thursday night, 6 to 6:30, a mental health fair at Grand Oaks. The presenter is starting at 6:30 until 8, and it's Teenage Technology Addiction on the Brain. It is a really, if you can't be there, we can't tape it because we are paying her to come in. But I hope you can be there, or send a neighbor who can share the information. It's really important. And thank you so much for your attention today. I'm glad you're here. Let me know if I can help.